Hello and welcome to National Focus. I am Julian Morris. In the headlines, the passage of 5 family bills to help create a more structured legal framework to protect Dominica's children. Minister for Legal Affairs warns of the legal implications for those who misuse child maintenance funds for personal use. And Delroy John Charles wins his first boxing match at the Alba Games in Venezuela. The details of the headline stories and more when we return. Welcome back. 5 family-related bills brought to Parliament by government on Tuesday, 25th April 2023 were passed unanimously before the House of Assembly adjourned sine die. The Labour Party administration, under the leadership of the Honourable Roosevelt Skerrit, has made history in tabling the bills geared at creating a more structured legal framework to protect Dominica's children. Minister with responsibility for senior security, children at risk, gender affairs and the differently abled, Dr. the Honourable Cassandra Williams, says the 5 bills are to be seen as part of a process of legal reform or legislative reform. Dr. Williams says the bills are meant to uphold human rights as enshrined in the Constitution. They are also in compliance with Dominica's obligations, having ratified the United Nations conventions. These include the Convention on the Rights of the Child and other United Nations treaties, which generally emphasize human rights and fundamental freedoms. The suite of family bills represent the culmination of a lot of hard work over many years.
The journey that has brought us to this stage started over 10 years ago with the introduction of the OECS Family Law and Domestic Violence Reform Initiative, with the expressed purpose of harmonizing certain existing laws and reforming the justice system to deal with family and domestic violence issues. Such an initiative resulted in the drafting of the 4 of 5 mentioned bills by the OECS Legal Reform Unit, whilst the Maintenance of Spouses and Parents Bill was drafted by the Office of the Attorney General. I wish for the benefit of the House to make it clear that before us are harmonized bills, which when enacted would coexist with legislation in the other OECS states, some of which have already met approval in those jurisdictions.
Dr. Williams says there are critical benefits for Dominica in reforming its family laws.
1, increase the capacity of our judicial and legal system in addressing issues surrounding women, children, and the family as a whole, thereby enhancing the administration of law and quality of justice. For example, the various provisions of the bill clearly gives guidance to the court in making relevant orders. Number 2, to strengthen institutional capacity by creating a climate that would facilitate greater access to justice by resolving matters related to the family and particularly children in a more holistic manner. And we're talking here about the restructuring of the welfare division and the establishment of a special unit within the police force to handle matters.
With the passage of the 5 family bills, the Dominica Labour Party administration has ushered in a new day in Dominica as far as parental responsibility and the rights of children are concerned. The new legislation puts Dominica on par with other OECS countries where similar legislation have been enacted.
This means, for example, Antigua would have among its statutes a Children Care and Adoption Act, which likely minor changes with what we are about to enact. This has certain benefits as a Dominican child residing or visiting Antigua who encounters difficult circumstances which require the intervention of the court would have the same guarantees in law as in the case of a child here in Dominica.
Prime Minister the Honourable Roosevelt Skerrit has led the Labour administration in achieving another major milestone for Dominica with the passage in Parliament of 5 family-related bills, namely the Maintenance of Children Act, the Status of Children Act, the Domestic Violence Act, the Maintenance of Spouses and Parents Act, and the Children's Care and Adoption Act. The Honourable Prime Minister says the bills represent his administration's long-standing policy to provide care, protection and security for all citizens.
It is based, Mr. Speaker, on our commitment to ensure that we protect the rights and responsibilities of all families across the spectrum of our society. This DLP-led government, Mr. Speaker, has a proud record of social protection. I refer to the set of policies and programs developed and implemented by this administration, aimed at reducing the social and economic risk and vulnerabilities of citizens and enhancing their capacity to protect themselves and enjoy a high degree of comfort and dignity. Whether, Mr. Speaker, is the eradication of pit latrines, whether it's the construction of homes and provision of housing assistance, whether it's access to pipe-borne water and electricity, whether it is free transportation to students attending secondary school across Dominica, free medical care for people 18 and younger and 60 and over, the allowance for people who do not qualify for pensions from 65 years and upwards. The list goes on, Mr. Speaker. These are some of the programs: the regularization of squatters, bringing a sense of dignity and pride and independence to our citizens across the board.
The Prime Minister says April 25, 2023 will be a memorable day for Dominica.
So our comprehensive social protection system covers all segments of vulnerable people, including the unemployed, disabled, sick, aged, single parents, and children. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, the bills before the Parliament meet our objectives to create fair and equitable systems in which all citizens are accounted for and their rights prioritized. I believe, Mr. Speaker, this is a red letter day for people in our country, especially the vulnerable.
The Prime Minister has acknowledged certain individuals who are distinguished in the field of child advocacy and says they will be recognized on a national level for their work.
I wish to, first of all, if you allow me, to recognize the sincere and consistent advocacy of what we're doing here today by people such as Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, Mr. Martin Anthony, Miss Gloria Augustus, and my deceased friend, Eva McIntyre. I wish to say to Mr. Martin Anthony and Miss Gloria Augustus that the state shall recognize you on November 3rd for your contribution to the children of the country.
Prime Minister the Honourable Roosevelt Skerrit says the suite of legislation passed in Parliament offers protection for spouses in divorce, parents and grandparents unable to care for themselves, children who are abused and neglected, and victims of domestic violence. The Prime Minister says taking these bills to Parliament indicates government's commitment to the welfare of children, women and the elderly.
By bringing these measures to the Parliament, we are, as a government, demonstrating our seriousness about the protection of our children, women and elderly, whose rights are most often trampled upon. Recognizing that strong family units must exist for societies to thrive, we have provided the structure to help family members navigate the legal issues of family life by setting out their rights and responsibilities to each other, as well as providing a framework for resolving disputes through court mediation.
He says these new laws will help secure a more hopeful future for Dominica's children.
The Status of Children Act in the Commonwealth of Dominica aims to establish equal rights for all children, regardless of their parents or the parents' marital status. In simple terms, the law is concerned with the rights of children to take interest in property and addresses the entitlements of a child born outside of a marriage. It legitimizes children, Mr. Speaker, ensuring that the issue of paternity is not held over their heads as a disqualifying factor in matters of succession. In essence, the law eliminates the disheartening and often cruel discrimination that many of us have had to contend with due to the cultural and societal norms of our small Caribbean societies.
This piece of legislation seeks to eliminate the inequalities and discrimination associated with siblings who, through no fault of theirs, were born out of wedlock and the unequal treatment meted out to them.
Many of us are familiar with the discrimination I speak of, Mr. Speaker, which has for generations followed children in Dominica, whom we like to refer to as outside children. In fact, several of us here may be all too familiar with what it means to be an outside child, looked down upon and made to feel less than, and in many cases ostracized by our very sisters and brothers who were fortunate to be born as legitimate heirs of our fathers. These situations form the genesis of this bill. This is the genesis of the bill. And we're seeking to correct a historical and generational wrong in our society, Mr. Speaker. And from today, this will come to an end in the Commonwealth of Dominica.
The law also extends its protection to children born through means outside of the natural order of insemination and conception.
The bill is forward-thinking, and I dare say, Mr. Speaker, groundbreaking. In its intent, it will overturn long-standing prejudices in our society, which have often crippled our citizens' ability to claim their rightful places within families and communities. I must note that a very key aspect of the bill's forward-thinking approach is its consideration of children born through artificial conception procedures, as is dealt with, I believe, in Clause 8 of the bill. As modern reproductive technologies advance, our laws must evolve to accommodate these changes and ensure that all children, regardless of their circumstances, of their conception, are treated fairly and have equal rights and protections under the laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica.
Minister for National Security and Home Affairs, Senator the Honorable Rayburn Blackmore, has made some sobering statements in his contribution to debate on the Child Maintenance Act. When the law takes effect, child maintenance will require a minimum of $75 a week per child. Mr. Blackmore warned of the legal implications for those who use child maintenance funds for personal use.
If the court issues an order and say that you must pay X amount of money by way of an order for the maintenance of John Blow, and you use that money by virtue of Section 26 of the Act, or the intended Act, which is now a bill before us. It's called a misapplication of funds. And there is a custodial sentence so imposed by Section 26. If you use that money, if the mother gives you the money, because in some cases, in few cases, I have a partner in Kenville, they have 4 children living with him, it's the father and mother at the same time. But it's a minor. The men have to feel the experience sometimes too, to understand what women are going through. But if you get that money from the court, and you use it to go and buy your nice clothes for Jazz Festival, that's hypothetical, eh? The bill is not in effect yet. Right? Or Korean Festival coming. Let's do Korean Festival coming in October. And the father who has made that money at the court by way of court can prove that that money was misapplied, wrongly used. Instead of taking the money to go towards the maintenance of that child, you take it to buy nice clothes or nice shoes, okay? You can be sent to jail for 3 months or a fine can be imposed of $1,000, Mr. Speaker.
He believes it's time for parents to play an active role in preserving the welfare and well-being of their children.
What we're seeking to do, Mr. Speaker, by assigning a minimum of $75, in other words, that's the lowest the court can go in assigning an order insofar as the maintenance of a child is concerned. Mr. Speaker, you would know that over the years, more so now, we are seeing the rise in inflation and the consequential impact on the cost of living. And when we came to that minimum of $75, it wasn't done arbitrarily. As I've said, that I was involved in all those bills. What we did, it was sent to the Ministry of Social Services. So therefore, there was a certain element of scientific data that had to be collated and to assist in arriving at a reasonable minimum.
Mr. Blackmore says the implications of the bills passed in Parliament are far-reaching, progressive and consistent with the national reset as announced by the Prime Minister.
Now is the time to do things you can do for yourself. Now is the time to take care of the children if you're so able to do. And we are blocking every crevice, every loophole to ensure that adults who can afford it live up to their responsibility and to ensure that they take care of the children that they themselves by their own action brought to this earth, Mr. Speaker. And it should not be left, therefore, for somebody else to do.
You are watching National Focus. More when we return. Welcome back. The issue of a maintenance order made by the court under the Child Maintenance Act evoked quite a lot of discussion in Parliament on Tuesday. Parliamentary representative for the Grand Bay constituency, Dr. the Honourable Vince Henderson, emphasized that there is a mechanism in place which reveals how far the court is willing to go to ensure parents adequately meet their responsibility to their children.
It provides for a mechanism where the High Court may, on application, make an interim or final order restraining the depletion of a person's property that would impair or defeat the making of a maintenance order. So in other words, if the parent owns property and they intend to go ahead and sell the property and not pay for their child maintenance, the court could make an order to prevent the sale of that property.
The court takes a number of factors into consideration in making a maintenance order, including the motivation of the individual in question to find gainful employment in order to shoulder their responsibility.
So the court can and will, once the matter is before them, consider the income. And I want to speak particularly to the other line after that, or two words, earning capacity. I want to highlight that because the income is one thing, but the earning capacity. In other words, you have a man that fair, a guy who refuses to work to his full potential or ability. He has the capacity. The man is a skill builder or something, and decides to hang around and do some menial jobs where he gets some little money. What this does is that the court will, in its judgment, assess that individual, look at all the factors surrounding the properties they own, whatever else. But what I find about this part is the fact that the court can impose an amount that is higher than what you're earning now, which serves as an incentive for the person against whom the order is made to go and find work.
Dr. Henderson says if parents would take their responsibilities seriously, passing new legislation would not be necessary.
What we are doing is almost seeking to legislate responsible behavior. That should not be for the parliament to do. People should be responsible enough to take care of the children and not abandon them children and leave them as ward of the state. And then people blame us when we provide for these very same children. I think it is more appropriate, Senator Douglas, to speak to those men and women who have abandoned their children so that the resources of the state can be used for other purposes. Because the pressure that it places on all of us, not just as members of parliament, but individually. And what this bill seeks to do is to bring a certain level of responsibility. So the courts will do its own assessment, the financial needs of the child. And I'm very happy for this, because I couldn't believe that there was actually a maximum. So a guy is making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and he pays the same thing as the guy who's cleaning on the side of the road. I mean, there's no greater injustice that your child should not be provided a standard of living that reflects your own income level.
In sports now, Delroy John Charles has won his first boxing match at the Alba Games in Venezuela. John Charles, who is a police officer by profession, scored a judge's decision win over Silva Jorge of Nicaragua. Although Jorge stood at a staggering 6 feet 9 inches tall, John Charles came out swinging in the first round and landed a number of heavy blows, but couldn't knock the giant off his feet. The second round was a bit closer, with John Charles tasting, the fury of the big man, but he shook it off and kept going. In the third and final round, John Charles, with the support of not only the Dominican contingent, but the Venezuelan fans, kept Jorge at bay and punched his way to a judge's decision. The announcement sent the hundreds of patrons into a frenzy, as John Charles immediately became a crowd favorite. With the win, John Charles has advanced to the medal round and will fight again later this week. In a post-match interview, Delroy John Charles described the match as tough.
To be honest, it was a tough fight. The toughest fight I ever had, But no obstacle is too big to overcome. I came in the ring, I did what I had to do. I fell short in certain areas, but I can guarantee my next fight will be better. I'll be working, doing some more conditioning, and so on. The Nicaraguan is a very powerful fighter, a bit slow, but like I said, I did what I have to do. While I've been here in often that when we perform, when we take part in a sporting activity and we don't place as we wanted to, I hear that we came here and we got the experience. Well, I'm saying now that I came here to give experience, I didn't come to get experience, and that's exactly what I did.
He noted that while he had to improvise due to the height and size of his opponent, he's happy that he was able to secure the victory.
My mindset was that he's taller than me. I'm going to work under his punches, get the body shots in. That's we already played right there. My strategy was to get the body shots in, work him under him, and then come up to his head. That's exactly what I did. I did not do it to the best of my ability, 100% as I wanted to. But it worked, and I was victorious in the end. I thought that I dominated the first and the second round. The third round, I was a bit fatigued because, as you could see that, as you said earlier, he's a few inches taller than me, and so on, and he was leaning on me a lot, and that can take a toll on your body, when you're a short fighter especially. So that in Dominican terms, squaved me a little bit. Yeah, man. But all in all, it was good.
Meanwhile, coach of the national boxing team, Mr. McNeil Jones, stated that Delroy worked very hard for this win.
Since we came in Venezuela, we have been working on condition and speed, and getting close in power punches and little only mistakes he made, and then just keep on going. We do get up, train twice a day, and then 6 o'clock in the morning, and then after lunch or 5, we go train until we have to go and see the other spots. But we work very hard for this one. I prepare him, I tell him, don't give him a chance. If he make a backward step forward, and don't send no punches unless he get close to the guy. So body shots only body shots, and no one shot. 2 shots at a time, no one shot. 2 shots, get in, and 2 free shots at a time, no one shot. The next one, we have to do in condition again. We have to do in condition, running stamina and so on, because he got a little tired in the last one, so I have to work him on the stamina.
Minister of State in the Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports and Community Development, Honorable Oscar George, has urged the newly sworn-in Paybush, Belmanier and Dodan Village Council to fulfill its mandate to its residents. Its councillors were sworn in at the 20th inaugural meeting of the Paybush Village Council held on Friday, April 21, 2023. Minister George stated that government will work with the council to ensure that they can improve the quality of life for their residents.
This government has sought to empower our village councils so that they may be better able to function and deliver on their mandate. And one of the mandates of the council is to ensure greater transparency and accountability in the execution of various projects and programs. It is the responsibility of the council to take every step in being accountable for the use of funds provided by the various ministries and outside agencies. I wish to urge the council, the People's Council, to continue to exercise prudence in the execution of your responsibilities. Government will continue to work with you, the council, in the improvement of the quality of lives for your residents.
He told the council that they are necessary to facilitate communication between the residents and government for the implementation of critical community projects. Minister George noted that the significant investment that has been made in the communities is evidence of the partnership between the council and government.
I am told of the gratitude of many of the residents who have benefited from the housing assistance, the small business assistance, the non-contributory pension allowance for 65 and over, and of course the National Employment Program, which invests $183,000 in the constituency every single month. I have been informed that over $1.8 million was spent in the constituency for housing following Hurricane Maria. This is a clear indication of your government's commitment to improving the quality of life of the residents of this community and ultimately building resilience at the community level. My dear residents, these initiatives by this government, working through the dynamic leadership of your new parliamentary representative in collaboration with your council, are all part of government's thrust to make things better for you, the people whom we serve.
He added that if government is to achieve its goal of a national reset, councils must play their part in the development of their communities.
You are all aware of the articulated approach of a reset during the recent general elections. This reset requires the active involvement of all of you in the transformation of our loved Dominica. Rest assured that the government, under the progressive leadership of Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, is committed to improving the quality of life of the people of Dominica, especially those that are vulnerable among us. A matter of fact, this government is the first to have provided the councils with large sums of funds for the implementation of community-based programs. You all will agree that the 8 people who form part of this council cannot do it alone. The chairman and the councillors have offered themselves to serve you, the people, so it's only fair that you work with them.
The minister further urged the council and residents to work together for the development of their community.
I wish to call on you to work closely with your council, support the programs and activities for the benefit of all. To the councillors, especially those of you that are new to local government, I urge you to commit yourself to the task before you. It is very important that you understand the principles of teamwork, of commitment and partnerships. Importantly, you must be willing to agree and disagree sometimes. But in the end, whatever decision you make, it must be in the best interests of the residents of the communities. I encourage you to build on what the past council have achieved and remain true to the oath that you took today. We all want to see a progressive and vibrant Paybush, but to get to this, we all have to play our part in whatever way we can.
And that's all for this edition of National Focus. Be sure to follow GIS Dominica on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter. You can also drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm. From all of us here on the GIS News Production team, I'm Julian Morris. Thanks for watching.